One of society's prime responsibilities is to provide a reasonable standard of living for its citizens and to promote their well being. Hence, one of the major objectives for economic policy in the long run is to enable improvement in well being, and in order to do this, it is first necessary for any economy is to expand its resources available within a society. And the key element in this process of expanding our resources is to achieve economic growth. Economic growth is therefore one of the most carefully monitored indicators of performance for an economy, because it is with economic growth we can expand our resources available for the economy. So what do we mean by economic growth? When we look at economic growth, we look at two things: the potential economic growth versus actual economic growth. Potential economic growth is simply the rise in productive capacity of an economy. It is an expansion of the potential output of the economy and can be shown through the shift of the PPC to the right. We say this that this rise in potential economic growth takes place if there is an increase in the quality or quantity of factors of production. So, for example, land, labor, capital, enterprise, they increase in quality or quantity, then the economic growth will happen, which will shift the PPC to the right. In terms of long run aggregate supply curve, it means the LRAS will shift to the right because now the economy has a higher productive capacity. On the other hand, when we look at actual economic growth is simply where aggregate output increases in the short run. And this happens because of the rise in aggregate demand or an improvement in the utilization of the factors of production. So, for example, if the AD curve shifts to the right, we will see the GDP to go up, and that will mean we will be finding our actual economic growth to happen. Because of this rise in AD and therefore rise in GDP, will see unemployment in an economy to go down. Now, this fall in unemployment basically also means that if we look at PPC, we are not going to have a shift of the PPC, but in fact, there will be a movement towards the PPC. So, for example, if this is my PPC and I am at point A, then if I go towards the PPC, like for example, point B, this means that suddenly the utilization of our resources have become better and unemployment will go down. So, actual economic growth can be shown through a shift of the AD curve to the right. So, for example, if this is my AD not will become now AD1 because AD curve will shift to the right, and we can see our actual aggregate output to go up from Y0 to Y1, or can be shown through a movement towards the PPC or productive potential of the economy. Now, how do we calculate our actual economic growth? Well, we look at basically our rate of change of real GDP over a period of time, let's say one sort of a year, to look at how economic growth is happening. So when the PPC shift to the right, that's potential economic growth, versus actual economic growth is when the AD curve shifts to the right, and that's basically the difference between actual versus potential economic growth. So, in order to measure our economic growth, it may be easy to look at real GDP, which is basically GDP that is taking into account inflation. But the problem that happens is this, that potential GDP may not be easy to figure out, because that is when we're looking at our basically output that uses all resources fully and efficiently, and may not be very easy for any sort of economy to figure out. So, actual change in your real GDP can be calculated, and that is what the annual percentage rate of change of real GDP normally on an annual basis can help us assess. And for countries like Pakistan and Philippines, where a lot of workers are working abroad and they send their income back to their families, maybe what we can look at is not real GDP, but gross national income, which means that we may include the net property income from abroad to look at their what we call output.